Hello! She knows her cue. She just licked my eye. Hello from a new corner of my sewing room. I decided to try this one out because it is right next to my sewing machine and I have some blank wall space. So when I get the time, I can, hang up some beautiful fashion plates, other decorative items that have to do with knitting and spinning, a mechanical technical drawing of knitting machines, which I want to get framed, and I think that will be a perfect place to display all of those things that you can look at. You might notice that I'm wearing one of the shirts that I made last week. This week, I am going to finish off my summer wardrobe. As you might have realized from the last time, I didn't finish making all of the skirts. I made 3 shirts and 2 shorts, but I didn't finish sewing the 3 skirts that I had planned, so that's what I'm planning to finish this week. I will also have a little bit of a segment of some parts of my antique book collection and magazine collection that we'll go through. Before we dive right in, feel free to subscribe to my channel if you like historical crafting content, sewing content, antique things, especially anything to do with knitting and sewing. I'd love to have you join me for future videos and finishing up my summer wardrobe and then diving back into, I think, a Victorian project. Let's jump right into finishing up the skirts for this week. I thought I might have enough time to finish the skirts. I'm realizing that I'm starting to rush and I'm doing things that I don't really love in the skirt. So I only included like 1 pleat on each side of the front, which I don't really like the effect of. I kind of sewed too fast and didn't really attach the full waistband correctly to my skirt. So I just feel like I'm rushing unnecessarily at the moment, just to try to finish this in some sort of deadline that I made up for myself, which means that I'm gonna create skirts I'm not going to wear. I'm gonna take a little bit longer, redo the waistband of this skirt, finish the hems on the other one, and actually sew the white skirt together next week. I think this looks amazing. So the blue skirt is redone except for the hem at the bottom. You can see I took out the pleats here at the front and I added a few smaller ones instead of just the 2 big ones. I added the elastic at the waist and only at the back, so the front sits nice and flat. I also re-sewed the front waistband so I don't have any issues now. I actually caught the waistband all the way through and I am beyond happy with how this skirt looks. Oh my gosh. I'm not exactly sure what length I'm going to make this skirt yet, but I'm in love with the color, I'm in love with the fit, and I just am so happy with it. Now I just want to remake the orange skirt, and then I'm on to figuring out the white one with the buttons. Although I don't have a automatic buttonhole maker, so all those buttons and buttonholes have to be made by hand, which is probably one of my least favorite sewing activities. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna get to the orange skirt, and then I'm going to make the white skirt, and then I'm gonna figure out how to hem the skirts properly all together. Oh. Oh. On to the orange skirt, let's go! And the orange skirt is redone. Utella is celebrating with me. I'm also very, very happy, like she is. So what I changed on this one was I redid the... Okay, I think Utella's gonna just have a good time. I redid the waistband so that it's not elasticated in the front. It's only elasticated in the back and it feels really comfortable. I'm very happy with this and I love how nice and flat it sits on the front. I also wanted to finish the seams. Like I said, I did French seams on most of it. Sorry, Nutella's chewing her bone. Except for the side seams and around the pockets. I was going to unpick it and redo them as French seams. I decided that maybe that would take me a little bit too long, so I wanted to save some time and I did bias hemming, I guess, or seam finishing instead. But because of this like complicated mess here, it ended up taking me probably just as long, if not longer, to do it this way. So I don't think I saved myself any time. But the seams are now finished and I feel much better about them not fraying when I wash this skirt. Now I want to work on my white version of the skirt, so view C. Thankfully, I've already pre-cut everything for view C of the skirt, so it's ready for me to go. I just kind of have to get my energy together to get it done. So I just finished doing some of the assembly of the view C skirt, And something that I might have mentioned before is that I was dreading doing the buttons and buttonholes on this. Turns out it's a false button placket. There are no buttonholes to sew, just buttons to make it look like there's a button placket, but no actual sewing of buttonholes, which is my least favorite thing to do. So that makes me very happy. I was just kind of thinking about how exactly I'm going to add this outer layer and the lining to this skirt and waistband. Nutella, do you want dinner? Ready? Set. Go! Yeah, come on. Come on. Come on. Let's go get dinner first, yeah? All right. I am done with the main basis of VC of this skirt. I've added in the waistband with the elastic at the waist, right, Nutella? And I absolutely love how it looks. So all that it's missing now is to sew the buttons on down the front and for me to hem not only this skirt but the other two skirts as well. So buttons and hems. And then let's call it finishing touches, and my essentials portion of my summer wardrobe is done. Oh. It's time for cuddles. This is what I mean when it's cuddle time. This is what she wants. Before I dive into the finishing touches on all of my skirts and the rest of my summer wardrobe, I wanted to show you a little bit about the other idea that I had that I mentioned a little bit in last week's video. I managed to amass quite a collection of antique things, and mainly antique books and magazines. That's a huge area of interest of mine, and I don't know if you've ever seen the Closet Historians videos, but she does a series called Cataloging Catalogs, which I love, and it's these long format videos where she sits down and talks about a catalog from the 1940s. I think she has some from the 1950s, and basically just we read a magazine together. I love it when I'm working on my own sewing or knitting or crocheting because I have my hands full, so I can't really page through a magazine. So I love putting on those kinds of videos in the background for me to basically be able to go through and enjoy a magazine and maybe look at some interesting things I wouldn't have noticed myself. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what kind of books I have in my collection that we could go through, I have, you might have seen it kind of in the background of some of my videos. Yeah. It's Weldon's Practical Needlework. This is one of 6 that I have. I think it's one of the original series of needlework, knitting, crocheting, and more. I think one of the earliest versions has bent ironwork as practical needlework, and I love this book. The illustrations are fantastic, and this is volume 12. I can tell by the number of stars on the binding here. I don't know if there you go. This one I know is available online. It's called Manners, Culture, and Dress, and it's illustrated, but I also think that it would be really fun to maybe go through this and some of the illustrations in a little bit more detail, you know, conduct in the opera, picture galleries, how commercial and legal forms should be filled out, anniversary and weddings, what to give. I think there's even etiquette for if you're invited to the White House ball, which definitely wouldn't have been part of that society if it were me. I also have a very extensive collection of magazines, and magazines that are particularly focused on fashion, and I especially love ones that have sections on needlework included, especially if the needlework includes knitting and crochet. So a large collection of magazines that I have are delineator magazines from the 1880s, 1890s, and some from the 1900s, 1910s. What I find really fascinating is the book that I reference most frequently for my antique knitting, which is The Art of Knitting, is actually a compilation of all of the knitting patterns that were featured in delineator magazines before 1892. So they basically just took all the knitting patterns that they featured in all the monthly magazines, piled them together, and published them in a separate book. They did the same thing for crochet. They had The Art of Crochet. I think they also did the same thing for cooking. So they knew how to stretch their content, I guess. But I find it fascinating because I recognize some of the patterns when I look through some of the older delineator magazines that I have. because they also show up again in my copy of The Art of Knitting. I also have magazines. I have the Godey's Ladies book. From what I understand, from what I remember, I don't know if I'm remembering exactly correctly, you used to get yearly subscriptions to magazines. People would then collect all the yearly copies of the magazines and then have them bound together in a book. So you have an entire year's worth of fashion magazines bound together in one book. And I have one of those from 1863. So this is Godey's Ladies book from 1863, a custom bound version from all of the magazines from that year. So I was just thinking, you know, what if I took the time to sit down and walk through some of these books, things like that that are in here in a longer form version, and have that as something that we can go through together. Please let me know if you would be interested in something like that. I've been debating as having it as like a separate series here on this channel, or because it's quite different from what I usually do, I was thinking like maybe would it be worth it to maybe have like a separate channel where I spend, I mean, up to an hour sitting down and going through a magazine in up close detail. I don't know, let me know. Do you want it to be a smaller series on this channel that I do every once in a while to sit down and go through some of my books and some of my magazines? Or would it be worth it to potentially have another channel where every week we sit down for like an hour and I walk you through? This one would probably not be the entire book in an hour, it would be in installments, but some of my other magazines could probably be done within an hour or so. Please leave me a comment and let me know, tell me what you would like to see from me. Okay, let's get back to finishing up the wardrobe. It's time for hems, buttons, and finishing touches on all of the other pieces. Let's get down to that. Oh, notice you busted it. Hey, and welcome back to the sewing portion. I'm going to be finishing off the skirts by finishing off their hems, and I have the 3 skirts here. Love how they look. I've been thinking about exactly how I'm going to do these hems by myself without a mannequin. A hem marker is sold where you basically puff chalk onto a line on your skirt. I found one, I got one, and let's see if I can figure it out. Okay, can you tell I'm excited? How the heck do you use these? Like this? Nice, you have some measurements going up and down here so I can choose. So I guess let me just stand and see. I definitely want the hem to be below the knee. Can you see? I'm like pumping air out of this slit here. Okay, so it says fill it with chalk. Oh gosh, is this gonna be an absolute mess? And how do I save this without it going everywhere? I'm just gonna put it down over here and probably forget about it and accidentally knock it off sometime later and be upset at myself for not properly putting it away. That's usually how it goes. Okay, should I test it? Oh, did you see that? Wait, can you see that? I'm not sure. Okay, let's not waste it. Okay, so it'll mark it like right there. Okay, okay, ready? Oh, okay. There you can see the chalk line. I definitely had some trouble where the dress naturally kind of created these folds. I had to really kind of go in and out to make sure that I got a line all the way across. Okay, start the front. Okay, so this one, I don't know if this is even gonna do anything. Hold on, let me check. I just put a ton of chalk in one spot. Yeah. Nope, can't see a thing. Okay, so this hem, I'm just gonna have to do the best I can to get it even and about the same length. I'm not gonna be too hard on myself on this one. So I like this method overall. It helps me get a better idea of where a straight line is, but it does matter a lot how you're standing and how the fabric lands. And I just wanted to show you what that's like. I really try to stand straight and keep the fabric straight, but I got a bit of a zigzag going on here. So I think that's because I bent over or twisted a little bit more than I was intending to, and that has an impact on where your chalk markings end up being. So I'm gonna probably take a bit of an average of all of them, but at least it helps me determine a little bit better where my hem is going to fall. Now that I had all of the hemlines approximately evenly marked out on 2 of my skirts, I pinned them and sewed the hems. I did a double folded over hem, I don't know if that's the technical name for it, and then I used the chalk marked skirts as my guide to hemming both of the layers on my white skirt. I then sewed all the buttons onto the white skirt to make that false button placket, which I think turned out really lovely. I was planning on using wooden buttons, but I liked the size of these better. Then I sat down and I did some things that I hadn't really taken the time to before, like trimming off all of the loose threads on the rest of my essentials wardrobe. And after all of that, my essentials are complete, and I have 3 finished skirts to wear. And that wraps up the essentials portion of my summer wardrobe. Next time I will be going a little bit more into detail on my antique magazine collection in order to give myself a little bit of time to knit and crochet the tops for the rest of my wardrobe. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to find me or support me anywhere else, I'll leave the links to my other social media pages in the description down below. And I hope to see you again really, really soon.